Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming. We are Frederick's original comics and gaming store. We've been serving the area since 1984. We are in our 36th year of serving the hobby community. We have been voted Frederick's Best since 2013. We've won it 8 years in running. Hopefully we win again. We're very proud of that each time that we win it. So this is our fourth session, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the last time we built my character, who is a human raised by elves, sent back to the human race to run for political office and possibly affect the campaign that way. Before we start, I'll let you introduce yourself and how long you've been playing.
Okay. I'm Jacob. I've been playing for about, I think it's 2 years now.
Okay. So I had a couple questions before you. I know we have an outline here first, but I wanted to ask you a couple questions pertaining to the previous videos first. As a player, when you first started playing and you saw the 3 books that were needed, were you intimidated at all by it, or?
A little bit.
Okay.
But not really.
Because you had your dad kind of helping you through it a little bit, but
yeah.
I'm sure he helped you by telling you, like, hey, it's not as bad as all this, and I think Donovan also helped you, right?
Yep.
So, as a player, did it come pretty easily? I know that it probably took you a couple of times to get more comfortable with it, but
yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so, for, like, making my character and stuff like that, the first time was kind of rocky. It took a pretty long time. I had, like, a ton of trouble creating a name and stuff like that. But as I got on, like, I learned new resources, like, just, different things, and it got way easier.
And more fun, I'm sure, also. Because I'm sure the first time it seemed a little bit like work. Like, you're like, oh, I just want to get into playing. So, your first experience, you also, I'm assuming, got acclimated to, like, to role-playing, kind of, like, figuring out, like, how your character would act and what they would do.
Yeah.
And what recommendations would you have to kind of make it smoother for players who are getting into it?
Really, like, even voices and stuff like that, you don't need to have those. Like, a lot of those things are just to have more fun and to add, like, more character to your game. But,
another
like,
layer to it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. One of the things I've often heard is, like, don't overthink it. Like, just have fun. Okay. All right. So we're gonna jump into the DM part. Much like the last time, I'm gonna let you direct things since you have experience in this. Like, as I say in every video, I've never done this before. I know the end game for this video series is for me to jump in, but and for those of you who have been watching, don't forget to like the video series, subscribe to our YouTube channel. But I'll let you take the floor.
Okay. So some of the things that you might need to start DMing, there is actually a starter's kit, and the starter kit inside of it, let me open this up real quick. It has a special kind of adventure that's pre-made.
Okay.
So all you'd really need to do to play this adventure is you just need people, and you read this beforehand.
Okay.
To get kind of like a feel for it.
Now I know that this comes with one set of dice. Would you recommend them buy more, or would you recommend them just stick with that at first, or?
You can stick with that at first, but like me, my dad, and basically our whole family has built up such a big collection of dice.
Okay.
That we have probably like 5 or 6 boxes just full of dice.
I know dice are very personal for role players. They feel like there's some cursed dice that they have. They feel like there's some very lucky dice that they have.
So there can be like certain dice that maybe just like fit your character. Like I know maybe you're playing like a sorcerer that really loves fire or something. I know there's certain fire dice. And even we actually have a friend named Mr. John Paul, and he will actually made all of us a set of dice for our characters.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Has he taught you how to do that, or?
No.
Okay.
Like we've done it with him and we see how he does it, but no.
Okay.
So the second thing that you're gonna need to run the DM would be the Essentials kit, and this is kind of it's basically the starter kit, but it has a few extra things. It has a set of dice like everything else, but the main thing is there is a DM screen. And behind the DM screen, there is a bunch of cheats for, like, just beginning players, like certain conditions and stuff like that. But that would be useful for a starting player.
And the thing is for that is so you don't have to flip through the book and you can.
Yeah.
And it's mostly the stuff that you would use over and over again, right?
Yeah. So the next thing.
Hold on a sec, Jake. Just to clarify too, you don't need both of those things, right? It's just
Yeah, you can just
those are your options to get started.
So the essentials kit, like you could just buy that and not the starter kit, and that would just have the DM screen as an extra.
Okay.
And that doesn't cost too much more than the starter kit.
Okay.
Or you could just buy the starter kit, and then you don't even need a DM screen, but it's really helpful.
Especially for a beginner.
Yeah. The most important book, though, that you're going to need by far would be the Dungeons Master Guide and the Monster Manual. So the DM Guide kind of helps you with just running it and kind of teaching you, like, the goal of being a DM is to make a fun story. You don't want to kill everybody, like maybe knocking one or two people out. You just want to have a cool story and make sure people have fun, even if it, like, includes maybe, like, they're all about to die and you roll a nat 20, like, fudging it a little.
Yeah.
And making it, like, maybe a 15 or a 16 so that they could still win and everybody would have fun.
Yeah.
And then the Monster Manual is really important. So you have to choose your monsters if you're making a campaign on, like, what monsters you want to throw them and stuff like that. So I know, personally, some of the monsters that I threw at them in my first campaign was the... I threw a Mimic.
Okay.
That's one of the most... It's pretty common. You always got to watch out for them. But, like, in the Monster Manual, it shows, like, the creatures' hit points and all stuff like that. It shows what their weaknesses are, what their advantages, and stuff like that.
Okay. And how many creatures are in the Monster Manual?
I don't know for a fact.
Like a couple hundred, enough to use. Like
Definitely.
Okay.
So there's actually another book, but this is a book that you can just... It's another... So in the starter set, there is a pre-made adventure that you can do, and this book also has a pre-made adventure. So again, like, all you need for that is you need just the dice, you need maybe a DM screen. It'd be helpful, but you don't need one.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Jake. The starter and the essentials kit, the adventure in there is more like for a couple levels, whereas this might get you through, what, 5 levels, 10 levels? Like, I'm not familiar, so...
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I have another question as well. So you said you need the Monster Manual. Do the constructed ones already have all that information in there, or do you still need to refer to the Monster Manual?
Yes, they do. So you don't actually need the DM Guide and the Monster Manual getting in with those starter kits and the essential kit and that stuff. But as you move forward, you definitely need them.
Okay. So, how about the other book that you held up, the adventure book? Does this have all the monster information in it, or does it refer you to the Monster Manual?
It refers you to the Monster Manual.
Okay. I just want to make sure people are prepared for what they need for each one.
So this final book, like that last book and this book, you both do not need. This book you especially don't need. It is a third-party book. So this would just go in and, like, it adds, like, another set of, not really rules, but things that can, like, certain set of different races now.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
So this one in particular focuses on, like, fairy tale monsters and things like that. And there's a whole wide range of ones out there. I know they have, like, Lord of the Rings ones also to incorporate into your campaign if you want to operate in that sort of world, or like what have you, like all sorts of different ones out there.
So, like, there's been a campaign that one of my dad's friends run, named Miss Ruth, and she goes really deep into like just decorations and stuff like that, and her campaigns are great. But she did a one where I don't remember, I think it was a Christmas one where we were all gnomes.
Okay.
And, like, you wouldn't normally be that. That would be a third-party thing, but...
Yeah. Sounds good. So, those were the things that you basically need to get started. So, what tools were the most useful for you?
100% the most useful tool would be the Monster Manual, and then the DM's Guide. But while playing, I really, really like the DM screen, too.
Okay.
Like, I would recommend it 100%. If you were going to get started and you were going to be a DM.
So, because it helps you, like, not have to flip out through the... Because
Yeah,
that slows things down. So what do you do in order to, like... say you're telling the story, but you're looking up information and everybody's staring at you. What do you do to kind of like keep the story going while you're looking up information?
You can have like maybe you can tell them to like discuss a plan or do something like that. But if you're trying to buy time, you can just roll dice and tell them that it basically tell them put on your poker face and be like, these don't matter.
Gotcha. So how did you prep? So let's talk. I'm going to back up a little bit. So you took a massive step the first time you DM'd. Mm-hmm. You went and created your own, right?
Yeah.
Would you recommend that for the beginner?
I'm going to admit it was a lot of work, and like we printed out tiles. We went above and beyond to try to do that. I would not recommend that for a beginner.
Yeah.
It took a ton of time. I mean, it was tons of fun, but I know the adventures would be a lot of fun too, so I would definitely start with one of those.
And also, if you want to get started immediately, it's easier just to pull it right out of the box.
Like, for me, creating that dungeon and just creating the theme probably took me, like, for finishing and, like, time that we spent, like, maybe, like, a month and a half getting ready for it.
Okay.
But, because we had to print everything, we painted everything.
You wanted to look very professional, I got you. All right, so let's go back then. So how do you prep?
For me, I would go ahead, I'd watch a few videos to see just like how it's run and stuff like that. Just Critical Role, Adventure Time, High Rollers, and other stuff like that.
Now, I have a question. Like, I'm a parent. My kid is only 2 right now, but let's say he was 10 and he wanted to play, but I was worried about some of these videos. Are all of them kid-friendly, or?
No.
Okay. So a parent should watch out, like...
So I'd probably watch it beforehand, and then...
Okay. I just want parents to know that there are some more R-rated ones out there, and there's also some that are more kid-friendly, so...
Yep.
Okay. It depends on the parent. I know some parents also are okay with some language, some are not, so it's really up to what the parent feels is appropriate for their child.
Yep.
All right, so you would watch the videos on YouTube or the podcast or what have you, because I know there's a popular podcast also. Yeah. So I see on the outline you had written, don't be afraid to ask. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so like for me, if I needed any help or I needed anything, I just go straight to my dad. And he helped me with basically all of mine. Like he was there, he didn't even play on the campaign. He was there to help me. And he did a bunch of the electronics while I told the story, and he was really nice with that.
Okay. And I know Donovan was your first DM. Does he help you as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So I also see here you recommend for a DM to play the game before they become a DM.
Yes, because you just need to get like a feel for how to play and stuff like that. Like there are times where like you'll have a whole new campaign, a whole new set of players and stuff like that, and somebody will have to be that DM. But I would go ahead, if you had to, I'd watch tons of videos.
Okay. So, you played first, so you feel like that definitely helped you.
Yeah, for sure.
Figure out how to like craft your adventure. So I know that you also recommend that they like whether they do the one that comes in the Essentials or Starter or the bigger book to read through the book first.
Depending on the book, yes. Like the Player's Handbook, you should kind of just like break it into chunks and then read it up. It's just something, it helps you when you play, and it helps you with, like, definitely, like, on the DM screen, saving throws, and maybe, like, conditions, like, maybe there's a monster that's, like, when it attacks you, you get paralyzed or something like that.
Gotcha.
So you'd have to, the DM screen's really helpful with that, but
specifically, like, the adventure modules, you would want to read the whole adventure module.
For sure.
Because you want to know where the story's going and helping to...
Yeah.
And also to make clear... again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going off what other people have told me. The adventures don't tell it like a story. They give you more like the key points, like how you would get there or whatever. It's not telling you like, hey, you go to A.
It's not telling you like you have to run the story like this. It's just giving you like really solid outlines.
Okay.
Because you can't decide what the characters choose. Like, there have been times in my dad's campaign where they're going completely off what the DM thought.
Yes.
And they were going, like, so it was, like, I don't remember the exact, but, like, something about a guy that was like a murderer, and the town didn't believe him, so they all started up a riot.
A mob for gotcha. And my understanding is there are certain players who look for the weaknesses to exploit in the DM.
So yes, sometimes people will do that.
Like purposely try and take the adventure in a direction that kind of hijack the...
That's another thing. You just got to be prepared for anything, because like the characters, you can't choose what everybody else just choose, and they can do basically anything.
Gotcha. So I'll ask you also. So have you realized or have you recognized that the playing D&D has helped you like realize in life that things don't always go the way that you plan and like go with the flow
like,
sort of thing?
For me, I've watched them, so I had a little bit of an understanding. So I mapped out like woods all around the town because I just wanted to make sure.
Gotcha. All right, so the next piece of advice you have on your outline here is to use a session outline. You want to go over what you mean by that?
So that would kind of be like the adventure guides. And that would be I don't remember how to pronounce it, but like the book in the starter set. And then there's actually that book. There's just a ton of different books that all have different adventures.
Okay. So
I will bring up, John, there was a book that when I was getting Jake into it that was really helpful. I was at the time, I think I was reading the Sly Flourish Lazy Dungeon Master's Guide.
Okay.
I find it particularly helpful. I have 3 kids, a full-time job, a whole bunch of hobbies, right? So I don't have a ton of time to prep. So he does a really great job of kind of focusing on prep the bare minimum that you need to deliver. It does a couple of things. It saves you time, and it also kind of keeps it loose so you can kind of improvise as soon as your players go off the rails, which they will. Any good plan falls apart as soon as you add the players. So we kind of went through an outline with Jake. I had him sit down, and Jake can talk about the outline, but we pretty much took that concept right out of that book and made a couple of modifications. So he sat down for a couple of nights with his spiral notebook and just kind of wrote out, not step by step, but he wrote out clues, and he can kind of go over his outline and share with them. I think that was a huge help having a plan for him.
And there's actually a lot of free content online also, right? In terms of like pre-constructed adventures and that sort of thing. I'm sure there's even monsters on the different websites. All right, so the adventure session hook overview, is that just like what gets the group together, what their mission is?
Yeah.
Okay. And it says encounter summary. So what is an encounter summary?
That means kind of like so it could be just like if somebody, let's say somebody was sick or something for that one campaign, somebody would summarize what happened last time, like maybe they found out a certain clue, maybe they got something new, like maybe a magical sword or something like that.
Okay.
So they'd summarize all of that from the last campaign for the person.
And like your dad just said, plan clues are important info to guide your players. You want to talk about that?
So to guide your players, basically when you have the clues, you just plan, you probably have, I'd say maybe like 3 clues per NPC if they try to like keep asking further and further, but normally people just ask like once.
Gotcha.
And they'll ask maybe like, have you seen this person or something like that? Have you noticed anything unusual? Or anything like that.
Okay. And what about location info?
So that is kind of like, just like around, like the surrounding area. So it'd be like maybe inns, and just stuff like that.
Maybe like caves or the wood, like just giving them options as to where they can go. So what about things that are ways to hook a player in motivations and backgrounds, like how to hook them in?
I don't actually know.
Okay.
Well, that's backstory stuff. That's backstory stuff, and it kind of ties into those clues and whatnot. Jake keeps kind of pointing out to it, right? You can't direct the player through all the choices, but you kind of have certain story beats in mind when you write out your adventure. Okay. So instead of kind of saying you're going to get this map from this person, one of your clues will be like, at some point, the players are going to discover this map. At some point, they're going to hear about this dungeon. At some point in conversation, they're going to hear about people being kidnapped. Just ideas to spark. And if you have those outlined, you can kind of let the players progress. And if they haven't gotten exactly where you thought they would pick up that clue, you can kind of insert it in a different way. And that helps you kind of keep the story moving forward.
Like, I remember I'm pretty sure when I run my one shot, so they were going to ask the NPC. I don't think they got into actually asking the clue. So I had to change it around. I had to make tracks leading up. So it was basically a sewer drain that was half open.
Okay.
And because they didn't ask anything about the sewer or anything like that, I just had to lead tracks up to it and like have it a little bit propped open.
It's kind of leading them to where they needed to be.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So the next one, it says, have a good session stopping point in mind. I know from talking to DMs, like one of the key components for them is kind of like a cliffhanger. Leave them at a point where they're like, and you're like, no, we're done for the day. We'll come back next week. Is that kind of what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of stopping? I know for yours, you didn't have a stopping. It
No,
was a
I
one,
didn't. It was one massive one shot.
Yes.
But stopping points, sometimes you could just even do it after a fight. Maybe after, like, they find out, like, a really important clue or something like that.
Gotcha. Just something to keep them hooked into the game and thinking about where it's going to go, that sort of thing. All right. And then the next one talks about what we talked about already a little bit. Be ready to change it up, improv, if things don't go as planned. People are people, and all of them are different, right?
Yep.
You never know how somebody's going to react in the situation. Let's see here. So how did you prep?
So I got a bunch of, I had a list of NPCs, I had a list of buildings, kind of had a map planned out, and it was good because we used grid paper.
Okay.
And essentially a tile would be 5 feet, and there's 4 tiles on that block of the 3D printed, so it essentially would be like 20 foot squared. So every tile we do 5 feet. So we kind of mapped it out with that grid paper and used it to help create our dungeon and our town.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And how much did your dad help you with all that?
A ton.
A ton? Well, I assume you're using his 3D printer to print out the...
Yeah, I know we at least had one running, but I'm pretty sure that we had at least 2 running, though.
For your dungeon, we had 2 3D printers running almost full time for the better part of a month.
And then we had resin, the resin print in case, like certain minis.
Gotcha.
We ended up buying them because it didn't look as good as we wanted it to. So we ended up buying them. But all those 3D printed and all the minis that we got, we painted literally everything for it. And it took a while.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
how do you feel?
His dungeon filled out the better part of a 12-foot table for reference.
And how do you feel your adventure turned out?
Pretty good.
Okay. Things you would have changed about it, looking back on it, or?
Maybe shortening it up a little bit, because it was pretty long, but besides that, not really.
Okay. Do you feel like if you had run an adventure or 2 beforehand, like you might have gotten a better handle on that?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm just trying to get an idea so that, like, somebody who's beginning can realize, like, hey, you know, these are the things I have to look out for. So running the game. You want to talk about that?
So running the game, when you're running it, you basically, the main thing is you gotta take notes of what the characters are doing and stuff like that. And
so I see it says here, a session to create characters together. So normally the party creates their characters in a group?
It actually, when we do it, it can be whatever, but session 0 would be where you guys just all sit down and you create it together. But
do you think it's more beneficial to create them together so everybody knows like who's who, or?
It really just depends.
Okay.
But
I think for a new group, John, that's why we kind of wanted to bring up session 0. It can be really beneficial, especially for a group who doesn't have a super experienced player, right? Let's say just with a group of friends, you picked up the box and want to start playing. Okay. So you have the benefit of kind of figuring out a lot of this stuff in the group. You're building your characters together. You can kind of talk collectively as a group about what your expectations are for the type of game. Do you want to have a lot of combat? Do you want to do a lot of RP? How often are you going to play? How late are you going to run? And just kind of spend that first session instead of playing, kind of laying out the pattern for how you're going to play going forward, and just get all the expectations and much planning as you can done. And it really makes for a much smoother campaign going forward if you take that time up front.
Okay. So it says discuss expectations for the campaign. I assume you mean the players with the DM?
Yeah.
So what kind of questions do you think a player should ask a DM and a DM should ask a player?
So the DM would normally ask, like, you'd start off by asking, normally you'd ask what race, what class, then a few traits about the character and the name. Because some people go really far and they have like an initiative tracker and they have little clips.
Okay.
And they'll put like a piece of paper and they'll just tape it onto a clip. And they'll have like a full tower that you can just clip it on in order.
Okay.
But you really just need to take notes, especially for everybody's name, so that when you have initiative and stuff like that, you can put them depending on first and stuff like that.
So I also would assume that you would also everybody would want to be on the same page as to whether it's going to be a one-shot adventure or a longer campaign.
Yeah.
Because you don't want somebody like, oh, I'm ready to play one game, and then they're like, oh, this is going to last 3 months, and you're like, oh, well, can't make that kind of commitment. Because games can either be very short or very long, right? So what other expectations for the campaign should be discussed between the players and DM?
It would be how long. It would be maybe like, is there a certain like standard we need to follow? Like, do they need to be from a certain place or something like that? And then sometimes, like when you go for the budget of gold, you'll need to ask your DM if like this item is okay. Like I can buy it, but I don't know if it's okay for the campaign. And
third-party books also. I know some DMs are very strict. Like, hey, I only want Wizards of the Coast product, officially licensed product, and then other people are like, just check with me first, and we'll see what we can work out. So this brings up a question that I was going to ask later on, but it seems to dovetail into what you were just saying. So the players and the DM should also work in concert with one another in terms of like building the characters, make sure they're working within the campaign.
Yeah, so you can like build the character, but you need to make sure that it's like basically you don't want too many of one character or anything like that. So you're just going to talk to your group, see who's building what.
Gotcha. Okay. And you have to take notes down, so definitely like keep track of where everybody is, what they're doing, sort of thing. Gotcha. All right. So the next one we touched on this a little bit earlier on. Be yourself, find your style, do voices, whatever works for you.
Yeah. So like you don't need to do voices, you don't need to do any of that. But if it's just you can do it if you want to. Okay. If it's not your thing, you don't need to.
I've known some very theatrical people that love to do like whole like monologues and that sort of voices, like you were saying. Get very in depth to it. Critical Role is one, right? That they get
because they're like all voice actors. They do their voices greatly and stuff like that.
They get into the characters, not just playing D&D to them. They're getting deep into they're going towards towards your friends and your adventure. Yeah. So it also says let your players help drive the story. I know this is a hard thing for some people. As a reason, like I said, some people have asked me to DM, like to start playing because they know I like to write, and I'm like, you guys would ruin my story, and that's why I know I wouldn't be a good DM because you have to be flexible.
You have to be just basically prepared for anything.
Okay. And like it's their story too. That's the main thing to remember. It's not your.
It's not like you're not the person that's like writing out the story. As the characters do stuff, you're making that story.
Gotcha. I also see that you say here, it's okay to reference the books.
Yeah. So just going through DMing, you can just reference the books whenever. It's not like anybody's gonna yell at you or do anything like that.
You can't memorize everything.
Yeah,
there's 300 pages.
You'll be understanding.
Yeah.
There's so much to remember when you're doing it that you just can't remember everything that's going on.
So let's see here. And here we talk about the dice rolling here, like how to stall for time, just pretend like you're doing something while you're looking for information. The biggest thing, have fun. I see that's on your outline also.
Yeah. So when you're playing, I wouldn't like you said with fudging dice and stuff like that, you just want everybody to have fun. You want people to be happy when they leave. You don't want people to be upset that like maybe their character died or something like that.
Yeah. So what was easier for you, being a player or being a DM?
Being a player was easier, but being a DM, I think, was a little bit more fun for me.
Okay. That's what you prefer to do. And I know there's some people who prefer to play, and there's some people who...
everybody is different. Everybody will like different things. But I personally prefer DMing, but it's just so much work.
So, was it easier or harder for you than you thought it would be, the DMing? And DMing is just Dungeon Master?
It's definitely a little bit harder.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say that it was like... It wasn't out of really what I expected. It was just out of what I hoped.
Okay.
So, I basically expected the worst, which is why I made the outline all around the town, just in case. But what I hoped was they'd stick in, and they pretty much did that.
Only you had to lure them to your trap a little bit more than what
yeah.
I know you really wanted that trap to go off. Was it fun?
It was a ton of fun. And I would totally recommend it to people that would just want to try it and stuff like that.
I know you got to spend a lot of time with your dad doing it. Like you said, it took a month to build everything.
It took a ton of time, but it was so worth it.
So you guys both planned together kind of what you wanted to do, and he helped you like outline your story and stuff, I'm sure. Would you recommend being a dungeon master?
Not to like the very beginning players, but once you play 1 or 2, I would definitely recommend it.
Okay. And what advice do you have for kids who want to DM?
I would say you want to play a little bit first. You want to watch some videos. I definitely, you just gotta, skim and scan the monster manual and stuff like that for getting started. See if there's any monsters that really attract you. For me, when I wanted to start it, I first made, the outline of the town. Then I just looked through the monster manual until I saw some cool monsters, and I just threw them in.
Okay. Would you recommend reading some fantasy novels, even some shorter ones, just to get some ideas also, or?
Yeah, so video games, novels, books, anything really. You can get character ideas. Maybe there's a theme that you really like. You can throw that in, but it would definitely help.
Okay. I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to throw out there about DMing, or?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything.
So, what do you think our next session will cover? Or do you
maybe
should cover?
Accessories, and just stuff that you can add on.
Maybe
to
the
make
miniatures.
to make the experience a little bit better, something like that.
Okay, I know that your dad wants me to learn how to paint at least one figure also. So.
Yep, upcoming, we're going to go over the anatomy of a turn, right? Because there's a lot involved with... A lot of people are confused when they first get started playing the game. So we'll go over what it means to take your turn. I believe we're going to go over some of the additional accessories that you might want as either a player or a DM. And we are certainly going to get into painting. And I believe we're going to have Jake there help you walk through the process of picking a mini, painting a mini, and getting it table ready so we can use that during your upcoming one-shot.
Sounds good.
Heck yeah.
Well, once again, thank you all for watching episode 4 of Play It Forward. I forgot to introduce that. I'm sorry. Play It Forward, the reason we called it that is, bringing in younger players, continuing the tradition of playing games, whether they be board games or role-playing games or card games. But even, introducing new people to comic books as well. There's a lot of people out there who have heard of these things but may not have as much exposure to it. We want them to know that it's not as intimidating as it may seem if you're on the outside and not as familiar with the terms and all of that. But thank you guys for watching episode 4 of Play It Forward, and don't forget to like us or subscribe to us.